What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the New York Sports Take. My name's Matt O'Connor, joined alongside my co-host Andrew Nadler for episode number 30. It's a very busy time in the New York sports calendar year right now. So much going on, a little bit past 10% through the MLB season. The NFL draft has finally concluded. Big draft weekend for our locals in the Jets and the Giants. The Knicks with a big convincing win, knotting up the series with Atlanta 2-2 a couple nights ago. Game 5 will be tomorrow night as the series swings back to Madison Square Garden. We'll be back on the feed for reaction to tomorrow's game, but we're here to recap the draft. Got a lot to unpack, but got to lead off by asking Drew, how you doing today, sir?
I am great. It's a great day. It's always a great time on the show. And, it's just a great day. The weather's getting nice. School's almost out.
School's almost out. You can feel it. I mean, May's around the corner, man. So, weather's, you need April showers, bring May flowers. So we've been dealing with a lot of rain over here. But I won't have to deal with the weather over here much longer. So that's good. It's been pretty volatile. All right, let's talk less about the weather and more about the NFL draft. The Jets. Look, I'm just going to get this out of the way. I'm not going to go on a tirade here tonight. I know probably some of you will want me to, as I did on my Instagram on Thursday night when the Jets went on the clock and they picked David Bailey with the number 2 overall pick over Arvell Reese. Look, I think it's the wrong pick. I think the Jets are going to regret it. I think that Arvell Reese is, and we're going to talk about the Giants later too, a potential future Hall of Famer, a gold jacket guy, maybe at some point down the line. And I just don't see David Bailey ever developing into that. That's all I'll say on that. I think David Bailey is going to be a really good football player. I'm excited about him. I listened to him and his introductory press conference as I was talking to Drew before we hit the record button here. He sounds like a great kid. He's a well-polished kid. Was at Stanford where he played over 30 games there and then obviously was the Texas Tech transfer last year. So let's talk about him. He's 22 years old at this point in time. You talked about the fact that he's at Texas Tech, and what was interesting, one of the reporters asked him, Drew, going into his year at Texas Tech when he made the decision that he wanted to play out his last year there, what his projection was with the NFL draft after his last year at Stanford. He had a really good career there. Like you said, you saw him play at Syracuse with Stanford. But he was probably going to be a 4th-round pick, as he mentioned. He would have gotten drafted, but he really elevated his game this year at Texas Tech, going from probably a high to middle 4th rounder to the 2nd overall pick behind Fernando Mendoza. I don't know if I said already, he's 22. He played a long time in college, and you just look at what he can provide the Jets right away. He is definitely the best pure pass rusher in this league. The reason why I wanted Arvell Reese over him is because I think Arvell Reese not only is going to be a really good outside linebacker for the Giants, plug and play right away, but I also think he's going to develop into a freak of a pass rusher just given his burst and his explosiveness and his athleticism. But David Bailey, he's got humongous hands. He had a 22% pass rush win rate in 2025. 2024, he was in the 100th percentile his last year at Stanford in pass rush rate. So this is a guy, he's going to fire off the ball like a sprinter. He's got great stride length, big instincts. There are a few things that needs to polish. Definitely his counter moves. But he's a guy, man, that is going to get after the quarterback. And I'm excited about him. You watched him play, Drew. I mean, there's no doubt that he is everything he needs to be a really good football player and be so right away for the Jets.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't really remember the game I saw him. It was like 2 years ago. But this past season at Texas Tech, I watched some of the games. The guy jumped off the screen, off the edge. He is a pure missile for the quarterback when he rushes the passer. The run defense is iffy. I think they can polish that in the NFL with good coaching. But the guy is a pure pass rusher, a heat-seeking missile on that pass rush, which the Jets desperately need. Because last season, I don't know, I didn't really watch the Jets. I don't think they put a lot of pressure on quarterbacks, which means they could just stand there and let it go, which is probably the reason why they had 0 picks. The guy like David Bailey will wreak havoc on a quarterback all game.
Yeah, and you talked about the two main things that Jet fans are going to have to look for as far as improvement goes in his rookie year from what he did in college are, as you mentioned, his ability to stop the run. It did improve massively from his time at Stanford to last year at Texas Tech. He got a lot more comfortable with doing that. We still need him to get there a little bit on that end. And then his counter moves probably could use a little bit of work too. He is physically imposing, but if he is not winning right away, and he's really good, one of the things that he's really good at is tripping up tackles because he'll change his speeds, and the way he stomps his feet and moves around is really impressive. But probably could add a swim move or something like that. You know, I'm no scout. I don't want to go too deep into it. But, I mean, the dude's got 34-inch arms. Like, he's going to get after it. He's a sprinter off the ball. And now, look, the Jets, and this goes to the critique of Bailey, too. They got 2 fast firers on 2. You see the lightning. You got 2. God. Yeah, I know. It's coming down over here. But you got 2 defensive ends now that are fastballs off the edge. They are there to rush the quarterback, but they need improvement as far as run defense goes. And the other guy that I'm referring to is obviously Will McDonald. The kryptonite for him throughout his career has been his run defense. And for the Jets to draft another guy that sort of lacks in that department is what's not ideal. The worst criticism you could have of David Bailey is that he's Will McDonald 2.0. That's what the Jet fans that are totally out on this move are saying. But David Bailey profiles as a better player than Will McDonald did out of college. Will McDonald, I think, was picked 8th or 7th or something like that. And he was, I mean, that was a reach on Joe Douglas's part. He was probably like, you know, a back end of the first round kind of prospect. Whereas David Bailey, I mean, most writers and draft analysts or whatever had him as a top 5 player on their big board. I mean, Arvell Reese, Jeremiah Love, maybe Mendoza, and then him right there. So I'm definitely excited to watch him play. Like I said, if it was my pick, I wouldn't have went with him. I would have went out of the more dynamic guy out of Ohio State who has a higher ceiling. But hopefully he can work on those things he needs to work on, and, you know, we'll see. I'm not as lit. I've cooled down reading about him a little bit more and everything. So, yeah, David Bailey, 2nd overall. Let's go to the next pick, and this one was definitely a little bit of a surprise, Drew. I also had not a great reaction to when Kenyon Sadiq went off the board at number 16 overall for the Jets. Not going to lie to you, I knew his name. I knew he was the best tight end in this draft class. With that being said, I didn't know much about him, and I knew that we took a tight end at the top of the 2nd round last year, I think like 33rd, 34th overall.
Yeah, real early. Yeah, Mason Taylor.
In Mason Taylor. So, with that being said, when we picked Sadiq, I was very skeptical. You just took a tight end at the beginning of the 2nd round last year. A lot of WTF texts flying around my family. But, dude, not quite fully aware. And I talked about Bailey's freakish athleticism along with Reese's. This might be the best pure athlete in this draft class. He's a 4'3", 40 guy, insanely good for a tight end and a guy who's 240 pounds. The first few steps off the ball are absolute rocket fuel. He's going to get great jump for you right out of the gate. And there's so many things, Drew, when you look at his game, especially from a tight end standpoint, that the New York Jets have been lacking severely in. One off the bat is the screen game. The Jets, particularly with tight ends, but across the board, have had abysmal effing screen games all over the place. Completing 5-yard screens and getting yards after catch on those has been a struggle. It's an offensive league. It's something you need to be able to do, and the Jets haven't really had anybody effective in doing that for a while. I love him in the screen game. I've seen some plays. I've seen a little bit of the tape. It looks really good, and he's versatile. That's the main thing. He can be a power slot guy. A lot of things people think he can only play the power slot, but he line up all across the line of scrimmage for you, play a little bit of Y, play some H-back, some fullback, everything. The guy can do it all. The question is, the big question that will probably define him, especially early on in his Jets career, is how offensive coordinator Frank Reich utilizes him. If he's utilized poorly and say they're only using him in the high slot or they're only using him in the backfield to block, that's not going to fulfill, and he will not reach his full potential. They need to get him the ball as much as they can while also being able to take advantage of a dude that blocked really well at Oregon. So I wanted to get your take on the pick. Everybody knows he's a freak athlete. I just mentioned some of the things I think he could bring to the table, but how do you think it fits with what the Jets want to do on offense?
I think this is a great pick. I think he fits schematically. As you said, he can play anywhere outside, get in the slot, get his nose in there and block a little bit. Where it's like, think of it as almost like if Kittle and Kelsey was a hybrid, almost to a way, like prime Kelsey, with the receiving Kittle getting in there and blocking. A guy like this, if that's 16, like, you got to take him. He's a dynamic playmaker. As you said, he's one of the best athletes in this draft, and he jumps off the screen when you watch his tape at Oregon. The guy is a monster.
Yeah, I'm fired up to see. I just want the Jets. That's the main thing with this Jets team. Over the course of my lifetime, there have been a lot of talented guys that have walked through one Jets drive that we have all the buy-in and belief in, and they're utilized so poorly, and they never reach their full potential here, and they go off elsewhere and perform great. Don't even get me started on the list of guys whose Jets careers have been defined that way. I like Frank Reich. Obviously, coached at Stanford last year. He was ready to retire and sit on the beach, but he's friends with Aaron Glenn. Obviously, we move on from Ingstrand, and we bring this guy in. It felt like a Reich-motivated pick, and I think, I want to believe that he is a plan for this dude, and he's going to be able to use him across all the different facets that we mentioned. And I heard people say, oh, well, maybe the next Evan Ingram, whatever. Sure, he could be a bust. He could be the next Evan Ingram, maybe Kyle Pitts, whatever. One of these high-end tight ends that gets taken early in the first round that never pans out because they're used poorly. We see it a lot, more often than not, when you take tight ends high that this has happened. But we've seen good examples, too. You look at Trey McBride. You look at Brock Bowers. So it's been a mixed bag. Hopefully he's more so on the good side of the spectrum there. And you don't have to worry about a dropping issue with him. From everything I've read and heard, he is an excellent pass catcher. Hands are very natural. And the dude looks like Aristotle. Like he's just carved out of perfection. So that's the thing originally when I saw him, too. He just looked like a really big receiver. So I'm fired up about it. Again, initially a pick I didn't love, but you got to do your research on these things, and after doing it, it's just going to come down to how the Jets use them. But still have a couple more picks to get to here after Sadiq. Here's the thing. They take Sadiq, and even if you're high on Sadiq, which I wasn't originally, but I'm sure a lot of people out there will, I get it, he's a pass catcher. The Jets still, with their first two picks, did not address wide receiver, which if we left the first round without doing, no Jet fan would have been happy with. But they very keenly trade up out of their 33rd pick, go to 30, and they take national champion Omar Cooper Jr. out of Indiana. I think some of us, I can't remember who, might have had Cooper to the Jets in our mocks. 16. So 116 passed by. It looked like that was going to be it, but very keen move from Muji. I think all they gave up to go from 33 to 30 was like the 179th pick in the fifth, which is a fifth rounder. So to me, that's worth it. Worth going up and getting him, whereas the risk of not getting him. I don't know who else had those three picks, but there's a good chance if one of them needed a receiver, it would have been him. He was the best one left on the board. Omar, look, talk about guy, and David Bailey's supposed to come in and make an immediate impact, right? Omar Cooper Jr. is one of the most, if not the most, quarterback-friendly wide receivers in this draft class. I mean, he did it all. He was Fernando Mendoza's number one guy, his go-to target last year, and he's going to make Geno Smith's life a lot easier. The speed is there. The size is definitely there. He has all the ready-made NFL tools and attributes to be a big addition for the Jets this year. 605 snaps in the slot compared to 146 out wide. Now, that's important because he's going to be a guy that I think the Jets are going to use in the slot schematically next year, which is good. But if anybody has it in their head that he's just going to be a pure slot receiver, that's not true. That's the way that Frank Cignetti and company, I don't know who their offensive coordinator's name is, used him with Indiana last year, which is wonderful. But in his collegiate career, he did more than just play the slot. Year before that, he was out wide a ton more. I don't have the exact numbers on me, but he was out wide, I think, like 400 snaps, and in the slot, less than half of that. So he could do a little bit of all for you, Drew. He's not your traditional X, like not the biggest, broadest guy, but, you know, he could be a flank. Garrett Wilson could also come in there and play some slot for the Jets. So I think the wide receiver position is going to be very fluid for the Jets next year, and I'm high on him. I don't know anybody, Drew, to be honest with you, that hasn't said, like, Omar Cooper Jr. is not an excellent fit for the Jets.
No, he is an excellent fit. And as you said at Indiana, he was Mendoza's number one guy. And you show his versatility, that offensive coordinator, Mike Shanahan. No, not the Mike Shanahan in the NFL. Different guy. I had to do the Google search back. But I'm like, Mike Shanahan? He's still coaching? No, completely different guy. But the guy is so versatile. They put him on the outside. He was very good on the outside. More of a slot guy with, like, you know, his frame. He's not the biggest guy. He'll make you pay. The guy is great after the catch. He's great catching the football, obviously. The guy seems to not drop the ball. And I've said it about the past two guys. I'm going to say it again. He jumps off the screen when you watch his tape. The guy is a pure receiver.
Yeah, I forgot about that part, too. That's a good shout. He's excellent yards after catch. One of the best receivers in that regard in college football last year. And he's fast. That's really the reason why. He's very fast. I'd imagine he had a great 40 time. Don't have it on me, but yeah, he'll be weaponized a lot, both inside and outside. So fired up to watch him. I think like next year, I don't know, we're going to talk about all these guys or whatever, but I think he will have he's the guy I'm least worried about. I just don't see a world in which Omar Cooper Jr. is not passing a ton of catches, racking up a shit ton of yards for the Jets next year and being great. So excited about him. Next pick is another Indiana Hoosier that I'm really excited for. Jets get him at 50th overall. He's a little bit of a smaller guy, Drew. He's 5'9". That's my father's height, so not so big. My father was not an NFL corner, but D'Angelo Pons is. And what a pick from the Jets. There are a lot of people out there, Drew, right now calling this the steal of the draft. And it's too early to say. Again, he is 5'9", which is way less than ideal for a corner in the NFL. But he punches above his weight. I mean, this guy is everywhere, making his impact known all over the field. You could stick him on taller receivers. He's still going to be a pest. He's still super buggy, super versatile. Plays inside and outside. I want to see the Jets line him up at nickel a little bit. That could be a very big threat. And I love this pick. I don't know how much you know about this dude, but he's a dude. Aaron Glenn, also our head coach, a guy who made a really good living being an undersized corner in the NFL. So definitely feels like an AG pick, and I think a great one.
Oh, yeah, 100%. It is a good pick. The guy definitely does play above his weight, like, because he is vertically challenged, as we like to say, in the Big Six. The guy is a shutdown corner at times, but the big flaw is, in fact, the height when he goes against bigger, more physical receivers. During the Big Ten Championship, when they played Ohio State and he matched up against Jeremiah Smith lit him up because he's bigger, faster, and stronger. That's his one flaw going into the NFL. But
There's that performance, and then another one, which is obviously negative.
Yeah.
But a lot of Jet fans who might not really be into college football, I don't really watch a lot of it, were probably watching last year when their potential first-round quarterback with the second pick, Dante Moore, was playing Indiana, and he got absolutely pummeled that game. And on his first drop back of the game, D'Angelo Pons picks him off. So Jet fans probably might be familiar with this guy if they watched his game already. And yeah, Drew, I mean, definitely important to note that one game where he got carved up by a really great receiver, but he's going to be hard to take off the field. I think he's automatically going to be a starting corner for the Jets next year. A lot of people had him ranked higher than 50th off the board, more early in the second round. But yeah, super fast as well. Another guy with great speed, ran a 4.36 40, really good instincts. And I want to see him play the nickel next year. The Jets have talked about playing Mika Fitzpatrick.
They're probably going to have to make him a nickel. If he lines up on the outside against these guys,
at 5'9",
matchup nightmare.
Potential nightmare. I mean, it's one thing to punch above your weight in college, but off NFL receivers, yeah. So we'll see. Look, the Jets have talked about using Minka Fitzpatrick at nickel, as he'd be the biggest nickel of all time. But I don't really like that, just because of how questionable the Jets' safety room is next year. I think we need Minka out at safety, then you're able to plug this guy in at nickel. So fired up about this pick as well. Another guy the Jets took. When did this guy go? I should have this here. It's the Florida State DT.
That was the next pick.
What?
That was the next pick they took at 103.
Yeah, 103. I think Darrell Jackson Jr.
Yep.
This dude is fucking huge. No other way to put it. You got to look at, I think he's got 12-inch hands, Drew, something like that. It is unreal when you look at this guy. He's going to be a little bit of a project. He's got a long way to go. But he can be, and look, the Jets' DT room was pretty much solidified going into this pick between the Devontae Sweat acquisition. You have Harrison Phillips, Juwan Briggs already in there, but it was hard to pass up on this guy when he was still sitting there at the board considering the potential. He's got 12-inch hands, as I mentioned, heavyweight striker, can throw guys off balance easily. I mean, you watch the tape, this guy it's child's play the way that he's able to throw interior offensive linemen off guard. And the big thing for him, from what I've heard, courtesy of great Jets podcaster Connor Rogers, which is going to be a concern at the NFL level, and why he was taken as late as he was because his pad level is a little bit questionable. He's tall, he can drive blockers backwards, but when his pad level gets thrown off, he's not as able to, he doesn't make as much of an impact, and not good at double teams or holding guys off to run a line of scrimmage. I mean, when he's not one-on-one driving a guy through, that's where you're going to see some hiccups in his game. And he is coming off a down year as well. He was better in 2024 than he was in 2025. So, yeah, to me, all that means is that the leverage needs work. A little bit more consistency, but anytime that late, Drew, that you're able to get a guy with those, with those physical traits, that's a win.
Yeah, 100%. You got a guy 6'5", that late, who has pretty good stats. Yeah, it's a good pick. The guy looks like a freak of nature, and as you said, the pad level, that's a coachable and fixable thing.
Right.
And, shedding the double teams, they'll probably work with him on that, but I think it's a good depth pick. In these later rounds, you're making depth picks at that point. I think this is a great pick for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're getting another guy who played in a big-time conference, played there for a good amount of time. Apparently, he's like got a great personality, too. He's funny, so always love those guys in the locker room as well. Here's an interesting one that nobody saw coming. There was a lot of discourse this year around the Jets and if they would take a quarterback in this draft or not. Throughout this whole process, Drew, from the second that the last whistle sounded in Buffalo in early January and the Jets season reared its ugly head against at Highmark Stadium, and we finished 4-13. Up until, I want to say, 2 weeks before the draft, I thought at some point or another, definitely day 3, that the Jets were going to take a quarterback. Then, as a few more leagues started to come around, you read more mock drafts, you get a little bit more awareness about the league and what direction teams might want to go. I didn't think the Jets were going to take a quarterback all the way through until Cade Klubnik's name was announced by the Jets. He goes, let's see, what pick did he go? He was in the middle. The Jets traded up to get him at 110 overall, 4th round. I think they gave up their other pick in the 4th round and then a little bit more than that. And right off the bat, before I talk about him, that was the most questionable part, because where the Jets were picking, it didn't feel like they needed to move up to 110 to get him. He probably still would have been on the board, so I don't know why you're giving up assets to get this dude. I'm sorry. His ceiling to me, Drew, is a high-end QB2 in the NFL. I know you're a big college football fan. You know about this guy. He had a really good year at Clemson 2 years ago, and then last year, the Clemson whole operation, especially offensively, was in total disarray. Things crumbled around him. He played poorly, but the Jets are taking this guy. It feels like a Frank Reich pick, with the belief that there is something there and that he could be a valuable QB2 in the league. I'm not sure I see it, but tell me what you know about this kid.
The guy is... Look, in 2024, that was the best version of him we saw. Willed Clemson to the college football playoff. Then this year, it looked like a shade of himself, where it's like he didn't look comfortable back there. He's an athletic kid. He's sneaky fast. He can move, get out of the pocket. And the arm talent is there. The accuracy is a little shaky, but I think he'll be a solid backup quarterback. And if, shit hits the fan and he has to come into the game, I don't think it's going to be like Brady Cook. I think you'll stand a fighting chance. And he has all the intangibles at 6'2", about 210 for a quarterback, which is great. He has all the intangibles. He's got to put it together.
You talk about the intangibles. It's a good point. Another one that I would add to that is just personality traits. I mean, we are talking about a great kid. Yeah. A kid that is super motivated, super eager to learn on the job, and he's going to do everything he can to stay in this league and be a viable quarterback that gets a paycheck, because he's just got that mentality. He's going to work his ass off. He's a big playbook, whiteboard guy. Like, even if he's not on the field, I think he can potentially help Gino or whoever the quarterback is we take in 2027 with noticing cues on the defense and just being a helpful presence. And look, hopefully he's a good backup quarterback in this league, whether that be for the Jets or a different team down the road. That's really all that I could see him being. And yeah, you talked about it, man. I mean, this past year was brutal for him. I don't know what Clemson's record was. I know they were like 500 ACC.
They went 6-7. They lost the bowl game to Penn State.
Yeah, and they were like 4-4 in ACC play. They were not good at all.
Yeah, and it was really funny is they started the year at number 3.
Right.
Yeah.
Everything was out of whack for them. I heard Tiki Barber talking about it on the Fan today. The main reason why things fell apart for Clemson was, it had to do with Klubnik and players underperformed, but felt like Dabo Swinney last year felt like I can do this on my own, whereas all of the other powerful teams in college football last year dipped in the transfer portal, and you can talk all about it. Whereas Dabo was like, no, I'm going to do this my own way. I don't need the transfer portal. He didn't get enough help, and they just weren't good enough.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. He's stuck on his traditional ways of not using the portal. He's a very strong advocate against it. So you think that could definitely be one of the big issues. He didn't dip into the portal enough. But they had a barrage of problems last year where it's just like, it was bad.
Yeah, it was even I remember that.
Year for the Tigers.
Yeah, very, very, very rough. Klubnik, he was erratic. He was rushed. Offensive line didn't do him any favors, and he struggled in the quick game, which is where you want him to thrive. Like I said, he's a X's and O's, big whiteboard kind of guy. Those are the kind of guys that you want in the quick game. They can make their easy reads, hit those easy passes, and he wasn't doing that at all last year. And at his best, he's a guy that can drive the ball in the middle of the field into tight windows and pick up some yards with his legs. So hopefully that's what he becomes. Again, don't love the pick. Still think the Jets need to add another veteran quarterback to this room going into next season, because if you're telling me Geno gets hurt early next year and your options off the bench are fucking Bailey Zappi, Brady Cook on the practice squad, and Klubnik, I keep wanting to call him Kubiak, Klubnik. That's not good. Just like the weather here in Dayton.
Is that lightning strike?
Yeah. Thunderous. Yeah. Wow. That must be all the Jets talk.
Her name.
All right. We'll wrap up really quick here. 2 more picks to get through. I won't spend too much time on this guy. Interior offensive lineman out of Miami, Anez Cooper, 188th pick overall. Remind me of the Darrell Jackson pick in that we're getting another big fatty, another absolute mauler.
Big fatty, 6'5", 334. Oh my God.
Here's the thing about this guy. He is like just as physically imposing as it gets or whatever, but he has no like football IQ really. I hate to be so blunt about it.
He's just
big. Yeah, he can't move east to west. His football instincts are really severely lacking. And he's got so much work to do. I mean, this guy's a massive project who really needs help with, especially his feet. I mean, they're very slow. He's really a gap scheme only guy. Gap shooters are absolutely going to beat him. David Bailey's interior got linebackers. Guys are just going to go right after him. But he's massive and he's hard to move off the line of scrimmage. So, look, I heard some other guys say this on the Jets podcast too. Like, obviously, this guy's not going to be starting for the Jets, but if you find yourself in 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 situations where you just need one, and you're going up against some heavy-hitting defensive lines, you're going up against the Bills, the Patriots, whoever else in the AFCs, and you need to squeeze out a yard or two, you could rotate this guy in at right guard, and he could give you a nice boost. It's another example for stopping the run on the other side that could do that in crunch time situations. So we'll see. I feel like it's worth a flyer on him. Yeah, I mean, we love our big boys around here at the New York Sports Take. So we'll see. Short yardage situations are what it's all about. Last guy, I'll spend a little bit more time talking about him because people fucking love this pick. Love him as a 7th rounder, and that is VJ Payne. He goes, now Connor Rogers, who covers the Jets and the NFL draft extensively. I mean, this guy does write-ups on like 300-plus players every year, projecting where they'll go and how good they are. This is a dude that had a 4th-round grade by his standards and a lot of other people in the know. He goes 107 overall by that, but he ends on Connor's standards, but he ends up falling to the 7th round for no explicit reason whatsoever, Drew. There wasn't any mud or dirt on this guy that came out before the draft. I don't know. I'm not in the war room, so maybe there was something buzzing through him about, but nothing on the media. There's no dirt on this dude. He just kept falling and falling and falling. 6'3", 206 pounds. He was a linebacker recruit. He's got 34-inch arms. 4.4 speed, he tested extremely well, and he's super young. He just turned 22. And you add that all up, and you have a really physically imposing safety. I mean, he's a linebacker recruit for crying out loud. Very rare combo of like the size, the length, the speed. Could play a little bit of corner. In college, he played mostly in the box. He played some in the slot, played some free. Unbelievable like sudden play, and I want to see. I really think that this guy can end up being a 7th round pick for the Jets this year that ends up being a starting safety for us down the road and potentially a second contract guy. And boy, I mean, the Jets have not had a lot of good luck in the 7th round in my lifetime, so would that be a treat to see a guy like this? I'm excited, man. I'm excited about this dude. There are concerns with him in man coverage and everything like that, but he's a guy who can throw on tight ends and use in so many different ways. So we'll see how it goes. But fired up about VJ Payne, the Kansas State kid.
Yeah, it's
All
a good
right.
pick.
It's a good pick.
I don't
So
know
we
anything
get through
about
the
this
Jets
guy.
draft, Drew.
What?
We get through the Jets draft. I'm sorry it took 37 minutes. But look, I do so much like reading and spend so much
Yeah,
time into
it's
it.
your team. I get it.
Yeah. So I wanted to do that. Let's talk about the Giants. We'll spend significantly less time on them.
Yeah, so can we make this quick?
Yes,
Real
but
quick, we don't have to do all the picks.
we don't have to do all the picks. Actually, I'm having Andrew on tomorrow, so we'll talk more about it with him. But let's talk about it a little bit. Arvell Reese. Drew, you're a Michigan football fan. I mean, you know this guy better than anybody as far as who was available in the draft this year. The type of talent that any team will take. And Joe Shane and the Giants, man, like, he was number one on their big board. They just thought they had no chance of getting him, which I don't blame them for not. With the 5th overall pick, there was 50-50 odds that the Jets were taking him at 2, and then all the teams between 2 and 5 were, potential suitors for him as well. And somehow he falls all the way to the Giants at 5. But a lot of people love this pick for them, especially schematically. And look, man, a lot of people were projecting him as an edge rusher out of college going into the NFL. And I really think he will be a good edge setter one day. But right now for the Giants, he's going to be an outside linebacker, and that's something that they really need. They were thinking about taking Sonny Styles if Reese wasn't available. So this guy's going to line up at outside linebacker. He might take some reps away from Kayvon Thibodeau, but Kayvon will be more of a rotational guy, it looks like. But he's going to do a lot for the Giants next year. One thing that we know is that he'll always be on the freaking field, and feels like a giant football kind of player. The mold that John Harbaugh wants in his building. Super physical dude. Could play outside linebacker, line him up at edge, and he's going to be in a 3-3. I think it works out great for them. Good for the Giants.
Oh yeah, this is a home run of a pick for them. Like it was like, shit. He fell to number 5. I didn't expect this to happen. This is a home run, slam dunk pick for the Giants. But the one discrepancy is where he's going to play. Will he be a D end or will he be an outside linebacker? Because his game is very similar to Micah Parsons. We remember Micah Parsons when he came into the league as an outside linebacker. God awful in pass coverage, and they made him a D end. This
Right.
could be the same story.
It very well could be. I think that Micah, the difference is that he had a little bit more experience in college as an edge rusher. I
Yeah.
mean, Arvell's really coming out mostly
I never heard of him
used.
until this year. I never heard of him until this year.
Reese, well, he's only 20 years old. I mean,
Yeah, no, like I watched Ohio State football when it was on the TV. And then this year he just burst onto the scene out of nowhere. But the guy's a monster. There's no other way to put it around. He's a freak of nature. At 6'4", 245. This
and
guy is going to make an immediate impact. And
absolutely, I mentioned the age too. So a lot of developing to go. I think that year one, we'll see how it goes. But they're really going to get most of his reps in at outside linebacker.
Definitely.
And Matt Patricia primarily used him as a joker in that defense. He's really good at creating short run lanes, but like you mentioned, that's definitely something to look out for is the pass defense with Arvell in year one. Might take a little bit of time to develop that. And then at number 10 overall, kind of a surprise, Drew, that they go with Francis Maui Noah. Did I finally get it?
Maui Goa.
Maui Goa. Francis Maui Goa. I know who it is. I just suck at pronouncing his name.
Yeah, you mess up with the names.
Yeah. It's not I'm not reading it for the first time. OT out of Miami. Look, I really thought the Giants were going to go double down on defense here and get Sonny Styles, especially because, not Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, especially because of their need at safety and the fact that the Cowboys are sitting right there and they're probably going to take him. And he'll probably haunt them for a decade plus. He might haunt your football team too. But, all right, we'll see.
Got future
But
Eagle written all over him.
yeah, we'll see. But Maui Goa, he's another guy, much like Arvell, who will be playing a different position for the Giants than what he played in college. Now, Arvell played, but Arvell will be at one position that he played a little bit. This guy will actually not. He was an OT at Miami, but he's going to slot in as a guard for the New York Giants next year, right guard, the spot that was still vacant on that line for them. And he is ready to take the role as another big-time protector for Jackson Dart. Giants' offensive line improved dramatically last season. 3-year stint at Miami. I mentioned he was mainly right tackle over there. He was a 5-star recruit. Led the Hurricanes in snaps in 2024 and 2025, a consensus All-American in his final season, and was a big part of their run to the championship game in protecting Carson Beck last year. Wide-bodied dude. I mean, he's a big guy, carries his weight well, doesn't have elite length. The quickness on his feet could use some works, but he plays relaxed in space, and I feel like he's going to be a really good player. I know you do not love the pick. I'm excited to hear your take on it, but feels like he's not going to be overwhelmed by the speed of the NFL because of how composed he was in his time at Miami and how much college experience he built up. I like the pick for them.
I'm not going to sit around here and say I don't like the pick. I do. I like the pick. It makes kind of sense, but it's a bit of a head scratcher when you think of who's available and who's more of the positional need, where Caleb Downs is sitting right there and the Giants pass on him. It's kind of a swing and a miss, but at the same time it's not, because you're getting a guy who you said is composed. The guy is a mauler. This guy, monster, mauler. But you pass someone arguably the best defensive player in this draft, where it's just a little bit of a head-scratching pick to me. But, I could be wrong. We can see what happens. But in the fine words of Ella Langley, Caleb Downs is choosing Texas.
Yeah, exactly. He gets a little bit of trouble lunging on runs. Still might take his lumps in year one. But I just think a guy that's going to develop into a really good player. But it'll be interesting to see how we talk about this pick down the road.
Yeah, because I think interesting, too. Because if they bump him into guard, it's who the guys he's going to match up against, too, within the division. Quinnen Williams. He's going to match up with Quinnen Williams twice a year, and he's going to match up with Jalen Carter and or Jordan Davis. And I'm really interested to see how these matchups go against these maulers of defensive tackles he's going to have to go up against if they bump him to guard.
It's kind of funny, too, because
a right tackle when the inevitable Andrew Thomas injury happens and they bump Illuminor over. That's going to be the big concern. Is if he has to bump the tackle in the NFL, because he's big, and you said he's composed, and you said did you say he moves well laterally or no?
I did not. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either.
He moves his feet well, so I assume that means laterally.
But can he keep up with the speed of these D ends and outside linebackers? We'll see. It's a lot of what ifs. This is either going to be a home run of a pick, or it's going to continue to be a head-scratcher, where it's like, kind of like the famous internet memes where it's like the guy taken right after is like a Hall of Famer, and the guy picked right before is like meh. But we'll see.
The reason why I like this pick, especially for the Giants, is number one, I believe that this guy's going to be good, but they're all prospects and projections. We don't really freaking know. I certainly don't know if nobody in the Giants building knows yet. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, there's no doubt. I mean, he could be the next freaking Evan Neal. He very well could. Yeah, don't know that. But I like it because it was a need for the Giants. I know he's not a pure guard, but they needed a guard desperately. Their offensive line went from one of the worst in the league last year to I think they ranked PFF 6th for an offensive line grade last season. But they needed to solidify it with one more piece. You're bringing in potentially the best offensive lineman in this draft class, and it just makes sense. What's the Giants' number one asset right now? It's their freaking quarterback, Jackson Dart. And without great protection, it's going to be a bumpy ride for him, I believe. So I like the pick. And the Giants also got their sexy, high-impact, great defensive player pick out of the way at number 5 overall. So, yeah, you could double down on defense, and the Giants need safety helps. And I respect anybody that thinks they should have taken Caleb Downs, but I think they already covered the sexy defensive pick already. Now go more practical, fit your need a little bit better. And they checked a big box here, so good pick. We'll do one more pick for the Giants. That was their second round pick, their first day 2 pick. And that was at number 37 overall with Colton Hood, the cornerback out of Tennessee. Giants lost Cardell Flott in free agency, Drew. So there was a major vacancy going into this draft. They were going to address it at one point, and they do that by taking the 6-foot, 193-pound Colton Hood. He thrived in a man-heavy scheme at Tennessee. Interesting. I'm not so sure that the Giants are going to be playing a lot of man this year. Okay, so actually I'm seeing now Denard Wilson does play a lot of press coverage, so that does make sense. And ran a 4.44 42nd yard dash. He's got great speed to cover up receivers deep. And he's a willing tackler, which for both New York football teams, the secondary guys have never been able to tackle, especially the Giants the last couple of years. So now you got a competent tackler in your secondary. Look, Drew, I mean, a lot of teams liked Colton Hood in the second round. Didn't know where he was going to land, but I think that this is one of the better picks for the Giants in this draft, considering the need. And he was definitely, by leaps and bounds, the best available. He might have been the second best corner in this draft, behind Delane. So to get him at 37 overall feels a little bit like a steal to me, and I like the pick.
Yeah, it's a great pick. It definitely addresses a positional need because their DBs are god awful.
Yeah.
He'll plug and play. He'll probably be a starter week 1. And his stats are pretty good. I think it is a steal. It's a great pick, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. He wasn't even a defensive player until his junior year of high school. Shows to show you he's just a pure athleticism guy, and I was totally right. He's a big man-to-man guy, and that's what Denard Wilson is apparently all about. So the Giants really, I feel like the Giants drafted better for their scheme than the Jets, perhaps, as we just finished recapping both of their drafts. Jets did do a lot of things that could potentially fit their scheme based off of what they do, but there's a lot of question marks around what Frank Reich is going to do. And Frank Reich has been a little bit plain vanilla in his NFL schemes his past couple of stints with different teams. But the Giants, John Harbaugh, the staff that he brought along, he has a clear, structured plan, both defensively and offensively, of how they're going to run things. And I feel like a lot of the players that they drafted in this draft sort of fit that mold, fit that physicality. They drafted a lot of big guys, a lot of tall guys. It was clearly a priority for John, and good for them. I know I'm going to have Andrew Huber on here tomorrow, and I'm sure he's going to echo the same thing. It's a great draft for them.
Yeah, it is.
Let's talk about the Eagles draft.
There we go. Best team in the league.
The Eagles. Look, I know that you wanted to go. I think was yours more? Did you have Miller as your?
Yeah, I said they were going to take Miller. They were going to take Lane Johnson's replacement. But I'm very happy with Mekhi Lemon. A fleece of a pick. They screw over the Steelers. They make an in-division trade with the Cowboys. And they take the reigning Bolitnikov winner, Mekhi Lemon out of USC, who will fit in right in that number 3, right in the slot. And he will pair perfectly with Smitty, and if A.J. Brown stays.
Well, A.J. Brown's not staying, so that's why I think
that's why they took him. But if, by the grace of God, A.J. Brown does end up staying, have fun, NFC East defenses, stopping this 4-headed monster. But
yeah, no,
if A.J. Brown does leave, still have fun dealing with a 3-headed monster.
Yeah, look, I do love the pick for you guys. I was a little disappointed with how the fact that when Mekhi Lemon was still sitting on the board at 16, that the Jets didn't take him. That was really the main reason why I was half frustrated with the Sadiq pick because of the positional nature of it, taking a tight end. But I'd say 60% more upset that we passed on Mekhi Lemon. He's a guy that I really wanted to see be a Jet. I honestly didn't even think he'd still be sitting on the board at 16. And then you guys trade up with Dallas at pick number 20 and take him. Like you said, probably in an ideal world, he's a slot player for you. He's your main slot guy, a guy that is a quarterback-friendly receiver for Jalen Hurts, who can find on some quick hitters, some slants, super dynamic pass catcher out of USC. A lot of people had him ranked as their third receiver in this draft, and then KC Concepcion goes a couple picks after him. But to me, Mekhi Lemon's better than him, and it's a great trade-up for you guys. Receiver, I know that you talked about Lane Johnson's replacement as your top priority in the first round. To me, the top priority for the Eagles was receiver, especially because it just feels like A.J. Brown's going to the Patriots.
Yeah, it seems like this inevitable doom. Where
That's
not
what,
doom in a way, it seems inevitable he's going to get traded to New England. Have fun over there. The grass isn't always greener, buddy. Where this is a great pick.
And by the way, with A.J. Brown, he's wanted out for a while. I mean, I'm pretty sure he was knocking on the GM's front
he signed an
door.
extension 2 years ago saying, I want to retire an Eagle. I love it here. Man, cut the bullshit.
I know, but it goes...
That he didn't get the ball a lot. Get open. But we don't need to get into that. I will go on a full tirade about him and his antics this past season.
It kind of goes to show you how fast things can change with these players in the NFL. Just after 2 seasons ago, when Dexter Lawrence was finishing off his best season as a Giant, he had a otherworldly amount of sacks as a defensive tackle. A really strong season, and the Giants sucked, and he signs that extension. He talked about wanting to be a Giant for life, wanting to have his name in the rafters one day, wanting to be part of a team that turns it around and be a long-term solution there. And then he was begging him and his agent to get out this offseason. He ultimately does, and for the Giants, that turns into Maui Noah. But, same thing with A.J. Brown, man. I mean, you just mentioned it. A guy who claimed that he wanted to be here for a long time, and clearly, Divinus takes over at some point. But I think you guys got a stud, man. I got nothing bad to say about him.
Nothing bad to say about him. The guy's a fierce competitor. And you always love it when he sticks it to Micah Parsons after he gets drafted.
Any reservations? I'll get you with one more question here. You can tell me what you think about both these guys, both Eli Stowers, the tight end out of Vanderbilt, second tight end to go in this draft, and then the offensive tackle. Another Miami player. How many Miami players got drafted here in Markel Bell? You can tell me your thoughts on both of these dudes, but I'll hit you with the question first. Any reservations? And I know you love your GM. He's probably the most savvy GM in football. Your front office has done a remarkable job on a lot of different fronts. But did you have any frustration with going with a tight end in the second when it felt like one of the bigger priorities for you guys this draft was the tackle position and the offensive line?
I mean, I'm a chronic Instagram user. I follow a bunch of Eagle fan accounts. Where the emotions were mixed. I personally like the pick. Stowers, the Mackey winner this year, the best tight end in college football. The guy is a physical specimen. He's a crisp route runner. He's not going to be more of a blocker. He's going to be more of a receiving tight end. The guy is a crisp route runner, and he has magnets of hands for the football. The guy, I think he's a great pick. I think he pairs really well with Dallas Goedert.
Right.
And then we'll transition into the Markel Bell pick. They're going to do what they did with Mekhi Becton. They're going to bump him to guard. He's going to play guard. He's too big and too slow to play tackle. Where I think they bump him inside, where it's a little less difficult for him. I don't think he's going to start unless Tyler Steen or Leonard Dickerson get hurt. But I think that's a great depth pick too.
Yeah, 6'9", 346 pounds. Apparently got great arm length and wingspan, so he might be able to get to a tackle one day. But I agree with you in the sense that it's probably more suitable to be a guard right here. And look, we see that so much with in the NFL draft with offensive linemen that get drafted as tackles in college, and it's usually a much smoother transition to come in from tackle and play guard than vice versa. Yeah, so yeah, here and there. I know it's not really an easy transition no matter what, but look, they asked Elijah Vera Tucker to do it multiple times, and he filled all roles great. Now he gets to do it in a Patriots uniform, so that's just wonderful. But so give me a draft grade for the Eagles.
A.
A? Oh, that's
B plus, A
Homer.
minus.
You're a homer.
Okay, I will give their draft a solid B plus.
Okay, fair
There's
enough.
some head scratching picks. Like they took a quarterback in like the 5th round. I don't
Right.
know why, but maybe Howie sees something I don't. I do like this pick in the 6th round. Michael Morris, a guard out of Georgia.
Okay.
His stats are incredible. Like I saw something where I think he gave up like 1 sack in like 5 QB pressures in his either this past season or his whole career at Georgia, where maybe he ends up playing guard for them in the coming years, and Bell plays tackle. I think this Micah Morris pick is a great pick for the Eagles, depth piece. And yeah, I think that's a great steal in the 6th round, and we'll see what happens. I think their grade is a B plus.
You have every right to give them an A. I'm just saying, it's fair.
B plus and A minus in that range. I think Howie did his job.
And he's pretty good at his job, I heard. Some people like to say.
Yeah, some people think he's good at his job.
All right, I will give I probably should have done it right after I did each team, but I'll just do it now. We'll wrap up here. We won't talk baseball. Let's give the Jets a grade. It's easy for me. I mean, right from the shoot, I think we got a lot of really good players, a mix of guys with super high-end potential and guys who will make an impact right now. Most especially Omar Cooper Jr. in my mind. And even Sadiq, a guy who has the really high ceiling and potentially a dark floor. He could be really good for the Jets this year. It just goes off how they use him. So B plus for me on that front. Would have been a sweet A to A minus if they took Arvell Reese over Bailey, but they opted to not do that. And then the Giants, I will give an A minus. I mean, automatically they're getting an A grade to me because Arvell Reese falls to their pocket with the 5th pick. Really either the 1st or 2nd best prospect in this draft he was. So felt like a great draft for the G-Men. Any last words, Drew, before we wrap here?
Go Birds.
Jets and Giants draft grades?
I'll agree with you. I think the Jets get a solid B, and I think the Giants they get a B plus from me because they did not draft Caleb Downs.
Okay,
I
fair
think
enough.
it's going to haunt them for years.
He very well could, and Giant fans that will be a huge talking point with them for a long time. So, want to thank everybody for tuning in. Drew, great having you on, man. It's going to be the first episode in quite some time tomorrow where you're not on. So, we're going to miss you, man. But we're going to talk Knicks basketball. We'll recap Game 5 with Andrew Huber. We'll cover the bases a little bit with MLB, maybe talk about the rest of the NBA a little bit too. And it's a super busy sports season, but glad to just hop on the feed and talk draft. So want to thank everybody for listening. 30 episodes in, everybody. See you next time. Adios.